It's time to swing back into our childhoods once more, because next on the lineup is Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest. No, not Diddy Kong's Quest, which is a mistake I'm certain every kid made when they had this game. Unfortunately, we're not just going back to your childhood, we're also discovering that your childhood was in fact a whole fucking lie. Anyway, this is a game that I too grew up with, and going back to it was quite an experience. Yet how does this game hold up compared to its predecessor? Well, that's what we're here to find out, so let's take a look. There's not a whole lot of developmental differences between this game and DKC1, but there are a couple things that do stand out a little bit. In DKC1, the use of silicon graphics and advanced computer model rendering technology were used for both the graphics as well as the sprite animations. For DKC2, Rare had purchased expensive new SGI equipment in an effort to make more complex sprite animations for characters in the game. At the time, it was a huge financial risk for the company, but seeing as this game received critical appraisal, it was definitely worth the risk. The second noteworthy thing was that unlike DKC1, the soundtrack here was entirely composed by David Wise, so if you like the soundtrack from the first game, you'll gush over the soundtrack here in DKC2. The story in DKC2 is just as streamlined as its predecessor, but there's a simple twist. King K. Rool is back and he's kidnapped Donkey Kong, so it's up to Diddy and his girlfriend Dixie to chase down the dong meme stealing reptile on his home turf, Crocodile Isle. Interesting to note that King K. Rool has also changed his name to Captain K. Rool, and for the most part the game focuses on a pirate theme. Almost like K. Rool had an identity crisis or something. When it comes to gameplay, however, DKC2 is supporting quite a few changes. The first and most obvious is the addition of Dixie. A lot like the first game, Diddy had a tendency to overshadow Donkey due to being faster and more versatile. Here, Diddy is now being a bit overshadowed by Dixie. Why? Cause this bitch can fly. Well, she glides actually, but it's incredibly useful. There's nothing quite like gliding over large platforming sections and giving the middle finger to the entire level. Another addition to DKC2 is the team throw mechanic. This is useful for getting to high places, collecting hard to reach items, or attacking enemies. It doesn't work on all enemies like zingers, so if you want to feel like an asshole, throw your teammate into one of those wasps and lose your Kong. The animal buddies get an upgrade as well. With the removal of Espresso and Winky, whom are probably high-fiving Harambe somewhere in the great beyond, we get introduced to Rattly the snake and Squitter the spider. Squawks also gets an upgrade, in that he turns from a lovable little parrot with a flashlight to a fat fuck that coughs up eggs at enemies. Fun fact, when I was little, I didn't recognize those as eggs. Instead, I thought they were crackers.
Polly want a cracker?
Polly wants your mama's sweet ass.
What did Polly say to me?
The biggest upgrades to the animals, however, are animal super moves. By holding down a button, the animal you're using begins to charge up. Upon releasing the button, the animal buddy launches at great speed, wiping out enemies along the way. Not all animal buddies have a super move, such as Squitter, but thankfully he makes up for it with the ability to create platforms made out of webs. The next change is the requirements for 100%, or in this case 102% completion. Each level has bonus rooms that hold large creme coins that are received upon completing the room. Most of the bonuses allow you to go back if you fail, but some that teleport you forward in the level or the cannon bonus barrels may not allow you to repeat them. You use the creme coins to enter the Lost World at Clubba's kiosk by paying the 15 coin toll per world. These levels are the hardest in the game, and they also hold the last few DK coins at Cranky Head for whatever sick, demented reason. Speaking of hard, this game is actually quite difficult in of itself. It has more enemies, harder platforming, and even more dickish moments to fuel the frustration meter. To make things worse, a lot of the times the faults in DKC2 are not some giant roadblock, but more like a bunch of bumpy frustrations along the way. Like how after you save your game at Kong College, Wrinkly starts charging you banana coins to save your fucking game. Oh wait, that's actually kinda like real college, isn't it? Or how about some of the more questionable hitboxes on some of the enemies? Or worse, Rattly. If that doesn't tickle the rage receptors on your taint, let's go back to those DK coins and how Cranky wants us to find them. Most DK coins are easy to find with enough searching, but then we have DK coins hidden inside bonus rooms or at the end of a level on the goalpost where you literally only have a few frames to hit the target at the right time. If you miss, you're replaying the whole fucking level just to have another chance to fail. Since we're on the topic of levels, quite a few of them can suck a Kremling dong. Like DKC1, some of the levels, namely the roller coaster levels in Crazy Kremland, you need to have some serious timing in your platforming just so you don't die. But my pick for the worst levels are any levels where you're transforming into Rattly using the animal barrel. Rattly already has a messed up hitbox, but if you combine that with the jumping enemies in Rattle Battle, Toxic Tower, or Animal Antics, then you'll be in a rage-induced coma if you're not prepared. And to top it all off, there is one thing that DKC2 has in common with DKC1 that can fuck right off. The reason why I can fuck right off is because of something I didn't mention in my last review, mainly because I completed the entire thing in one sitting, but the item count is not tracked after a reset. That also includes your lives. So that means that the more bullshit levels got even more frustrating now that your lives have reset as well. Now with the bile out of the way, let's move on to the positives about DKC2. First and foremost, I actually like how the challenge increases between games. It's sort of like how Mario Lost World was meant to be a challenge increase to those that beat the original Super Mario Bros. Thankfully, DKC2 was not created by Satan and baptized by Hitler, so the challenge increase here is not nearly as brutal. There's also a versatility factor in DKC2 that allows for stages to be completed in a comfortable way. Sometimes you want speed, so you'll primarily use Diddy. Or maybe you want to say fuck it to huge chunks of the level, so you switch over to Dixie. Or perhaps there's an animal crate nearby, so you'll use that instead. So long as you can dodge the onslaught of enemies, you can complete each level in almost any way you like. Not to mention that the pirate theme of the game really does add an air of fun to each level. If that doesn't work, then the music certainly will. David Wise really outdid himself here, as I find the music in DKC2 even better than DKC1. Music pieces like Sticker Brush Symphony and Gusty Glade are just a joy to listen to, but my personal favorite is the music to Rattle Battle. Yeah, the level sucks and it starts very underwhelmingly, but when that music kicks up, I stop caring that I've died 8 times before hitting the halfway barrel, just so I can listen to that epic beat some more. My recommendation for DKC2 is more based on what you, the viewer, want out of this game. DKC1 is pretty tame and not very difficult, but it didn't have as much content either. DKC2 on the other hand may be quite a bit more difficult, but it also fine-tunes many of the gameplay mechanics and has more content to keep you busy. If I needed to compare based on the amount of bullshit between the games, I would say that DKC2 has more, but it also has that extra content, so I would say it has just as much as DKC1 if you compare them weight for weight. As a result, I can still happily recommend DKC2 to players of all kinds, but I also recommend playing DKC1 first before moving on to this one. So that does it for Diddy's Conquest. Next up, we take on the last of the 3 OG DKC games, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. I'll admit full out that I haven't played this game in a very long time, so this one may take a while. So with that said, this has been Regnilla wishing you to have fun and to take care.